So now it's my great honor to introduce this year's Convocation speaker, Matt Forti, a Weinberg College class of 2000. Matt Forti is the US Managing Director of One Acre Fund, now the largest non-profit social enterprise working exclusively to improve the yields and incomes of Africa's smallholder farmers. One Acre Fund delivers farm inputs, financing, training, and market facilitation services to over 450,000 farm families across 6 countries in East and Southern Africa, ending chronic hunger for over 1.5 million children and enabling productive investments in education, health, and new business activities. Matt played an instrumental role in One Acre Fund's founding, helping to raise the seed capital to launch the organization while a student at our sister institution, Kellogg School of Management, and thereafter becoming the organization's inaugural board chair. He's now vice chair of the governing board and helps coordinate the organization's global operations, including partnership and business development, corporate finance, and monitoring and evaluation. One Acre Fund has twice been named to Fast Company's top 10 most innovative companies in Africa and was ranked 15th in the latest Global Journal Top 500 NGOs edition. Prior to starting One Acre Fund, Matt was a manager and co-head of the performance measurement practice at the Bridgespan Group and a consultant at Macaron Associates. Matt received an MBA with distinction from Kellogg School of Management in 2006 and graduated summa cum laude from Weinberg College in 2000 with a BA in economics and sociology. Please join me in welcoming Matt Forti back to Northwestern and Weinberg College.
Dean Randolph, assembled faculty and administration, friends and family, and most especially graduating students of the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences. I'm so honored to be standing with you here today, celebrating your commencement from the greatest university in the world. Said proudly from one alum, class of 2000, to the next 950 alums, class of 2017. Congratulations. So I've spent some time researching commencement speeches. Here's the bad news. The vast majority are rated by their audiences as pretty atrocious. So the odds really aren't in my favor. But here's the good news. Some smart people, probably from Northwestern, have looked at the ones that seem to work. And there's a common thread. You just have to do something outrageous. So I'm going to start by sharing my most embarrassing memory from Northwestern. Or at least the one that's PG rated enough for today's day. When I was a freshman in 1996, the Northwestern football team had actually gotten pretty good. Our defense was led by a player some of you may have heard of named Pat Fitzgerald. Go Cats. That year, a fraternity who shall remain nameless invited me up to travel to Iowa to see the Cats play. We demolished them, 40-13. Like the other Cats faithful, I rushed the field. I was hugging other fans, hugging players. It was really great, until I looked around and there was no one left to hug. The stadium had completely emptied. I walked outside and looked for the bus that was supposed to take me back to Evanston, and it was gone. I had $8 in my pocket. I didn't know a soul in the state of Iowa. And you might find this hard to believe, but 20 years ago, most people didn't have cell phones. So just as this was all settling in, I saw this coach bus driving to the exit. I ran as fast as I could, flagged them down, and it turned out to be a group of older Northwestern alums heading back to Evanston. So instead of a rented school bus, I drove back in luxury, which was pretty cool. The alum I sat next to talked my ear off about this activity he had been a part of at Northwestern called Dance Marathon. And he said I absolutely had to do it. It didn't really sound up my alley. I'm not a very good dancer. I'm not very pleasant when sleep deprived. But I decided to give it a shot. A few months later, I was surrounded by hundreds of classmates when at hour 30 we looked up and saw that we had raised over $530,000 for cancer research. To put it plainly, I had never in my life been part of something remotely that important. It was really the first domino that set off a chain of events that led me to my current work in the nonprofit sector. So why do I share this story? You're going to make mistakes, a lot of them, but they're going to be the source of some of your luckiest breaks and ultimately your greatest accomplishments. I bet you didn't know that the hard pretzel, a snack we all love, was invented when a careless young baker left a batch of soft pretzels in the oven overnight, only to come back to find out that they tasted pretty good the next morning. Post-its, that came from a scientist who failed his assignment to create an adhesive strong enough to bind together airplane parts. But his colleague noticed they actually worked pretty well for tagging pages in a church hymn book. And the list goes on and on. So remember, embrace your failures and the seemingly strange direction they may take you in. So that was my first outrageous act for today, an embarrassing memory. And I'd like to do a second now. I want to run a large human experiment with everyone here today. You're going to have to help me with this. I want to ask all of you to just stand up for a minute. If something, anything that's happened in the world over the past 12 months has left you outraged, infuriated, or just made your blood boil. Does that describe anyone? Okay, stand up if it describes you. Okay. Thank you for helping me make this work. So, the world has gone a little crazy on us. Not yet. So, keep thinking about this thing that really has infuriated you, and now ask yourself, can you yourself really make a difference? Is this problem too big for you to make a meaningful dent, for you to change the status quo? If we're being honest, sit down. Can't really make a difference on that problem. All right, actually, that's pretty good. All right, we'll let everyone sit down now. Well, that was my feeling too, graduating from Northwestern. So let me tell you a second story now that will hopefully make that true for all of you. In 2006, I was back in Evanston, this time at the Kellogg School of Management. On April 17th that year, a friend and classmate invited me to lunch. He wanted to tell me about a random side trip he had taken to rural Kenya in Africa. He met a farmer there named Gertrude Awinja, whose picture I still carry with me today. She's a single mother with 7 children. She farms 1 acre of land. And my classmate, Andrew Yoon, met her during what's known as the hunger season, when the food from the prior harvest has run out and the family is skipping meals. The children Andrew met that day were emaciated from weeks of not having eaten properly. The older children weren't attending school anymore because their parents couldn't afford their school fees. And the younger children were too hungry to concentrate on their studies. My friend Andrew decided to investigate a little further. It turns out that most of Africa's poor are farmers. Their very profession is to grow food, and yet they can't grow enough to even feed their children year-round. But in most cases, these families actually have adequate land. Gertrude farmed 1 acre of land that's about the size of the football field we're on today. The problem is that the farm revolution that this country and many others experienced decades ago, better farm inputs, training, better markets, just never made its way to Africa. So that's what Andrew told me at lunch that day. It left him outraged, infuriated, and it made his blood boil. But he told me he wanted to do something about it. He felt that if he could just figure out how to get these inputs into the hands of farmers, finance them, and train farmers on how to use them properly, these families would grow enough to end their chronic hunger and have some left over to sell to pay for school fees for their children. And he wanted me to help him launch this endeavor. It sounded interesting, but there were a few minor problems. First, neither of us knew anything about agriculture. Trust me, the closest I came was a class at Northwestern called Diversity of Life, and the material didn't stick. By the way, sitting behind me is the professor I took in that class, in a very cruel irony. But Professor Galbraith, it was me, it wasn't you. Trust me. Second, we didn't know anything about Africa. Third, we didn't have any money. And fourth, there was one additional tiny issue. This is a problem that many people had worked on for many generations. $1 trillion of aid has gone into Africa to solve these problems without great effect. It would have been easy to sit down, to sit this one out. But we decided to give it a shot anyway. We started with a business plan at Northwestern. We traveled around the country trying to win money through competitions, but we struggled to gain enough to really launch an organization. As timing got tight, we turned inward. We turned to our classmates, faculty, administrators, and alums. And it wasn't until the final weeks before graduation that we had assembled enough to send my colleague Andrew to Africa. And this never would have happened if not for the Northwestern community, which came together to fund 90% of our first year's budget. So in 2006, we extended our first loans to 38 African families. We soon realized we had stumbled on this massive market failure, 50 million hungry farm families in Africa, and a simple model of inputs, financing, training, and markets that made an impact that was scalable and that was self-sustaining. Today, I'm proud to share that our organization, 1 Acre Fund, is ending chronic hunger with some updated metrics now for over 500,000 families with over 2 million children. Thank you. And we don't intend to stop until no child of an African farmer goes hungry. And so I hope the second takeaway that you have is that every single one of us here today has the power to make a difference. But let me go further. Every big recognized institution you know, Apple or Google, the Salvation Army or United Way, even Northwestern University, was started by just a bunch of friends who saw some failure in a market, some status quo they wanted to change. They had a vision for a better future, and they pursued their dreams. To quote the famed anthropologist Margaret Mead, never doubt anthropology, in the front row. Never doubt that a small group of committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. So think again about that thing that infuriated you, outraged you, and made your blood boil, and ask again, why not you? You are among the most blessed 950 young people in the world. You've received the one thing that every poor farmer I've ever visited wants more than anything else, what every poor farmer will sacrifice their next meal for, and that's an education for their children. Because even in the most remote villages in Africa, mothers and fathers there know what our mothers and fathers, our grandmothers and grandfathers, learned through the hard sacrifices that they made, that the greatest return on investment is educating the next generation. So please join me in taking a quick pause here to turn around and thank those who made this possible for me and for all of you. So you all have this incredible gift, your education, and I hope you will use it well. To quote the Bible, to whom much is given, much shall be required. So how will you earn it? I've found my peace in social justice work, but some of you will be chemists. We will need you to develop the breakthrough drugs that have eluded prior generations. Some of you will be linguists. We will need you to preserve the indigenous languages that would otherwise die out. Some of you will be classicists. We will need you to inspire the next generation with the brilliance and the beauty of antiquity. Some of you will be politicians, and we will desperately need you to bring our country back together and heal our nation's wounds. And some of you will be investment bankers. And yes, we even will need you, because you will steer capital to the next Facebook, the next Amazon that will fundamentally change our lives. The blessing of your liberal arts education is that you can jump from field to field, but you'll always have a rich and diverse arsenal of tools to draw upon, to tackle whatever challenges stand in your way. So let me leave you with one final suggestion. Every year on your birthday, ask yourself, are you content with what you're doing? Because the hours will be long, the setbacks taxing, the sacrifices significant. But Confucius had it right over 2 millennia ago. If you love what you do, you will never work a day in your entire life. Congratulations, Weinberg College graduates of the class of 2017, on this most special of achievements. And thank you for allowing me to crash this special celebration. Congratulations.
Thank you, Matt. That was absolutely touching, moving, and beautifully put.